Lesson 2.4, Investing Money. If you could have $100 now or $150 in 1 year, which would you choose? How you answered is probably based on your current wants and needs. Those whose needs are immediate would probably choose $100 now, while others who don't have any current pressing needs may not need that $100 right now and may choose to wait to receive the $150. If you decide to wait to receive the extra $50, you might be interested in investing. So what is investing? Investing is when you put money aside. Your money works for you to get more money back in the future. The longer you set aside, the more money you can earn. There are many different ways you can invest money. Some of these include GICs, or Guaranteed Investment Certificates. It's an investment where the interest rates remain the same for a set period of time. So you invest money into certain companies, banks, businesses, and they earn a set interest rate over a period of time. A Canada Savings Bond. Those are bonds that are issued by the government and pay simple or compound interest and are cashable at any time. What a bond is a written promise by a company or the government to repay borrowed money, usually with interest. Bonds are often bought and sold on the stock market by brokers. So when you buy a bond, what you're actually doing is you're lending that corporation, that business, that part of government money so that they have money to spend. And when you come to collect, when they pay it back, you get it back with interest. Shares. Another way corporations raise money is by selling parts of their company, called shares. Shares are bought and sold on the stock market. So you can buy pieces of a company, so you own a little bit of that company, and that is called a share. And mutual funds. When you invest in a large number of bonds and shares from several different corporations. So what a mutual fund is, you have someone called a broker, and he makes a collection of different bonds and shares that make a lot of money. And you give him a set amount of money, and he spreads it out amongst those bonds and shares. The last type of investing is a little bit different. It's called an RRSP, or a Registered Retired Savings Plan. And it's a plan to which workers may contribute money for their retirement. So you can put money into this RRSP, and it earns interest, but you usually can't take it out without a penalty until you are retired, because it is a savings plan for your retirement. So investments that earn interest. So the first few investments we looked at, the GICs and the bonds, and also the last one we looked at, the RRSP, allow the investor to make money by earning interest. Essentially, you are lending money to a bank or company or to the government through a Canada Savings Bond with the promise that when it's paid back, it will be paid back with interest. It's the same process as when you borrow money, only now you're lending the money and not borrowing it, so you're earning the interest instead of having to pay it. Let's see some examples of investments that earn money through interest. So we're going to look at a simple interest problem. So find the simple interest earned in 1 year on $500 that invested at a rate of 3%. So you're investing $500, maybe in a GIC or in an RRSP, and it's collecting interest at a rate of 3% per year. So that's simple interest. We want to know how much interest is earned after 1 year. So remember, to calculate simple interest, we do I, which is the interest, times P, the principal amount we invested, $500, times R, which is the interest rate, times T, the number of years. So to calculate the interest rate on the above investment, we take our equation, I equals P times R times T, and we fill in the values. So like I said, P is $500, the interest rate is 3% or 0.03, and the number of years is 1. You can put that in your calculator and you should get that the interest earned on the above investment is $15. So if you take that $500 and you put it in that investment for 1 year, not only will you get your $500 back, but you will get an additional $15. So the investment earns $15 interest. So let's look a little bit closer at bonds then. So it's another way of investing that also earns interest. But when a bond is purchased, there's a maturity date put on it. This date dictates when the money will be repaid with the interest. If the person wants to collect their money earlier than this date, they can do so, but will sometimes pay a penalty. So when you take out a bond, it might be a 10-year bond or a 20-year bond, but you're putting a date on it. You're letting this business know how long you plan on lending them the money for. And if you come to collect before that maturity date is up, you may have to pay a penalty. So let's look at some examples. So in 1996, a $1,500 15-year AmeriBond was purchased. So that means that $1,500 was put into a bond in 1996, and it's expected to be left there for 15 years. If the bond pays 6% simple interest and is kept until it matures, so for the full 15 years, what is the interest that will be earned? So we're going to use that same simple interest equation, I equals P times R times T. We'll plug in our information. So P is the amount of money we invested, which is $1,500. R is our interest rate, which is 6%. And T is our number of years. And since we kept it until it matures, that's 15 years. Put that in our calculator and we can see that this investment earned $1,350 interest after the 15 years. So after the 15 years, not only do we get our $1,500 back, but we also get an extra $1,350 in interest back as well. So what if the bond sold for $1,300 after 10 years? So what that means is the person wanted to take the bond out after 10 years. So they didn't want to wait till the maturation date when it was mature. So instead of getting the $1,500 back that they invested, they're only getting $1,300 back instead. But they're also getting the interest that was earned. So let's have a look. So first let's figure out how much interest was earned in the 10 years that the $1,500 was left in the bond. So we do $1,500 times 6%, but this time times 10 years. And we find out that $950 interest was earned on that bond. But remember, we're only getting $1,300 back of the original $1,500. So what that means is that the bond will lose $200 because it was sold early. So because we didn't wait the 15 years, we lose $200. So we take the $950 that we made in interest and we subtract the $200 that we lost by taking it out early, and we can see that the bond actually only earned $750 after 10 years. Okay, so let's have a look at another example. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video right now, give this one a try, and come back and see how you did. Okay, so if a $2,000 bond was bought in 1998 at an interest rate of 4% with a maturation date of 2018, we have to calculate a number of things. So if you look, that means that it's a 20-year bond. To go from 1998 to 2018, that's 20 years. So they expect that that $2,000 will be left in that bond until 2018 for those 20 years. So the first question is how much interest is earned at the end of maturation? So how much interest is earned after 20 years? So we use our simple interest equation. We fill in $2,000 for P, 0.04 or 4% for our interest rate, and 20 years for T since we're doing the entire span of the bond. And we get that the interest is $1,600. So if the bond is left there for the full 20 years, it will earn $1,600. The next question asks how much interest is earned after 1 year. So this doesn't necessarily mean we're going to take the bond out or try to sell the bond after 1 year. We just want to know how much interest is earned in 1 year. So again, we use our simple interest formula, P times R times T. We fill in our information. P is 2,000, R is 4% or 0.04, but this time since we're only looking at 1 year, our T is 1. And we see that the bond will earn $80 in interest in 1 year. What about interest earned in 5 years? So we do the same thing. We use our simple interest equation, but this time our T is 5 for 5 years. And we get that the bond will earn $400 in interest in 5 years. Finally, what are the earnings if the bond was sold for $1,000 in 2005? So in this case, we are not waiting until the bond is mature in 2018. We're going to take the bond out after 7 years, which is 2005. But because of that, we're not going to get our full $2,000 back. We're only going to get $1,000 back. So let's see what happens there. So first we have to calculate the interest earned from 1998 to 2005, which is a 7-year span. So we do 2,000 times 4% times 7 years. And we can see that the bond will earn $560 in interest. But now we have to see how much money was lost due to the fact that we took the bond out early. So we do the $2,000 that we invested minus the $1,000 we're getting back, and we can see that the bond will lose $1,000 because it was sold early. So it earns $560 in interest, but it loses $1,000 because it was sold early. So we can see that we actually lose $440 when we do that subtraction. The bond will lose $440. Okay, so that's investments that earn interest. Let's look at investment that earns dividends. So mainly here we're going to look at stocks or shares. So businesses can make money by selling parts of their company called shares. People buy shares because shares sometimes pay dividends, amount of money out of the company's profits. So what that means is if you buy, let's say, shares in Apple, that means you own a little bit of the Apple Corporation. Not a whole lot, a very small amount, but you do own a small amount. So when the Apple Corporation makes money, because you own part of that, you're entitled to some of that money. And that money is called a dividend. Another way that we earn money with shares is that shares increase in value. So you can sell your shares for more than what you paid for to earn a profit. So if you buy a share for $5 and it increases in value a little bit later on, so now it's worth $6, you can sell it and you have more money than you started with. The risk is that shares may also decrease in value. So when you try to sell your shares when they've decreased in value, you would lose money, and you have to be careful with that. So let's look at some examples. So Mary buys 1,000 shares of Acme Corporation at $8.50 a share. They do not pay a dividend. If she sells the shares for $10.75, calculate her earnings. So she paid $8.50 for each one of those 1,000 shares, and she sold each one of those 1,000 shares for $10.75. So the first thing we're going to figure out is how much money she made per share, and that's a simple subtraction problem. So we do $10.75, take away $8.50, and we can see that she earns $2.25 per share. So for every share, she got $2.25 more than what she started with. So let's figure out her total earnings. So since there were 1,000 shares, we just do $2.25 times 1,000 for a total of $2,550, which is her earnings for those 1,000 shares. Let's look at a different situation. So she has those same 1,000 shares that she paid $8.50 each for, but instead she sells them for $7.50 each. So they had decreased in value by a bit. How much money would she lose? So we have to find out how much each share decreased in value by subtracting. And we can see that the value of the shares went down by $1 per share. So if the value of the shares went down by $1 per share, and she bought 1,000 shares, we can see that she loses $1,000. $1 for each of her 1,000 shares. So I want you to look at example number 5. Kelsey buys 1,200 shares, and see if you can do that one. So it's a little bit different because in the B part there are dividends involved. But take a second, pause the video, and see if you can figure it out, and come back and see how you did. Okay, let's have a look. So Kelsey buys 1,200 shares of ABC Corp for $9.50. If Kelsey sells these shares for $10.50 per share, how much will she have earned? So first we figure out how much she earns per share by doing $10.50, take away $9.50, and we can see that she earns, oops, that's a typo. She earns $1 per share. So this should be $1 per share. Sorry about that. So if she bought 1,200 shares, we just do a quick multiplication and see that she earned $1,200 for her 1,200 shares. So let's look at the B part. If the shares paid out $800 in dividends, so that means while she had her shares, before she sold them, she got $800 worth of that company's profits. And then she sold them for $7 each, so a little bit less than she bought them for. She bought them for $9.50, and now she's selling them for $7 each. Would she earn money or would she lose money? So she's definitely going to lose money by selling them because she's selling them for less than she bought them for. But let's see if that dividend helped even things out a bit. So first let's figure out how much she lost per share. So we do $9.50, take away $7, and we see that she lost $2.50 per share for a total of $3,000 lost for selling her 1,200 shares. But she earned $800 in dividends. So she actually only lost $2,200 because that $3,000 in losses coupled with the $800 in earnings from her dividends leaves her with a loss of $2,200. Okay. And the last type of investment we're going to look at is mutual funds. So like I said, a mutual fund is a combination of a group of bonds and or shares from a number of different companies. Mutual funds are bought and sold in units from a broker. They may charge a fee when you buy and sell mutual funds. So they're calculated very similar to stocks and shares, where stocks and shares, you look at a cost per share. With mutual funds, you look at a cost per unit. The only difference is we have to figure in that brokerage fee, if there is one. So let's look at two examples. So Kyle invested $200 in a mutual fund. The units are sold for $5 each. The brokerage fee is included in the price. So this time it's included in the price. So how many units did Kyle buy? So if he spent $2,000 and each unit was $5 each, in order to determine how many units he bought, we have to do a simple division. So how many times will $5 go into that $2,000? And we can see it's 400, which tells us he bought 400 units. So 400 units at $5 each will cost $2,000. Later, he sold the mutual funds for $5.15 each, so they earn money very similar to stocks and shares. So find the increase per unit. So how much money did he make for each unit? And we can do some subtraction and see that he made 15 cents per unit. But since he bought 400 units, which we've got in A, how much did he earn? We just multiply 15 cents per unit by 400 units, and we can see that he earned $60. Okay, and let's look at an example where there's a broker's fee. So Ann invested $3,000 in a mutual fund. The units are sold for $7 each. The broker's fee is $200. How many units did Ann buy? So before we can do that division like we did in the last example, we have to subtract the broker's fee, because $200 of that $3,000 invested went to the broker. It didn't go towards the units. So first we figure that she spent $2,800 on those mutual fund units, and then we can divide to figure how many she bought. So we do the $2,800 divided by $7, and we can see that she bought 400 units. She sold the mutual fund for $7.20 per unit, and there was a broker's fee of $250. So once she sold her mutual fund and she got a profit, she then had to go and pay the broker another $250. Let's see if she earned any money. So we saw that she made 20 cents per unit, and there were 400 units. So we see that she made $80. But unfortunately, she had to pay, of that $80, oh wow, that's a whole lot of mistake. Let's cross this out. Of that $80, she had to pay $250 to her broker, which left her at a loss of $170 once she paid her broker fee, because she only profited $80 and she had to pay $250 out to her broker. Okay, so that's the end of lesson 2.4, which is the end of chapter 2. I'd like you to go try the worksheet for lesson 2.4 and check your answers when you're done. And then we should be getting ready for our chapter 2 test.